Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and as you saw from our introduction, we are going to talk about reasons for routines, specifically when you have small children. And I never figured that out, so I am very grateful to have my wonderful guest, whom you met a couple weeks ago, and you're going to be reintroduced to her again. But before I begin, always have some housekeeping rules. I do want to thank the crew for this evening. Chris Flaherty, who is one of the staff members here, making sure that everything goes smoothly, and Chris just miracle worker. We also have Noel Donahue, Evan Peckham, and Christina Nikitas, who have given up their Wednesday nights to come here. And as always, I want to thank my husband, Paul, for staying home for Daddy Date Night, although I don't think there's going to be much daddy date because he has to work. And I also want to give him a special shout out because tonight actually is our 20th wedding anniversary. And I am very grateful that he let me come out and hang out at BCAT instead of, doing something with him. So anyway, thank you, Paul. And we are live. However, we no longer have the ability for live call-in, but you can always email us at talk@bcattv.org. So if you have a question, suggestion for a future topic, definitely reach out via email because I'm here or I'm there. I don't know. Anyway, you may remember my wonderful guest, Laurel Segal, who is the founder of the Seagull Nest, and you are a pediatric sleep consultant, postpartum services, and the wearer of many hats.
I do wear many hats.
And most of them involve small children.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming again.
Of course.
Back by popular demand. This time you're solo. Yay! So before we actually get into the need for routines and how you establish those, and as soon as you establish them, the child changes, so keep you guessing. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you came to this area, if you're not from originally around here, and what made you get interested in postpartum, doula, routine, children, all the many hats that you wear?
So first, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I'm originally from Middleborough, Mass. I
Okay.
was southeastern Mass. I was there until I was 21, and then I moved to Vermont. I guess I was there until I was 21 and moved around in the area, and then moved to Vermont for 4 years. And then
did you go to school up there? Because 4 years just kind of seems like a school
I
thing.
did, and I also met my ex-wife.
Okay.
And lived up there for a few years. I did not go there to college for all 4 years up there.
Oh, okay.
And I stayed up there after I graduated and then moved around the Boston area for a while. I had moved 21 times in 12 years.
Wow. Okay.
But now I've been in the same place for 3 years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But hopefully, you do not have the pack rat gene like I do, and you don't have a lot of stuff.
I don't. But
Okay.
I'm also really, really good at U-Haul Tetris.
Oh, I love U-Haul Tetris. That's
and
fun.
trunk Tetris. I'm amazing at it. I don't know that that's a talent most people want, though.
Is. It is. I always get to pack the car when we go on vacation because I make sure.
You're good at it.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
I came to the Boston area because there's more jobs, more opportunities.
A little bit warmer than Vermont, depending on where you are in Vermont.
With global
Well, yeah, that's true.
climate change in general.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
I live in Malden. I have connections in the Burlington area, in this Burlington area.
Okay.
And
You could also have them in the Burlington, Vermont area, but
I used to.
That would be a rough commute to go from. Okay. How'd you get involved in this line of work?
I was trying to figure out how to word it.
Oh,
I've been caring for children since I was 10.
Oh, wow.
I remember my neighbor having a baby when I was 12 and me begging them to let me hang out with him. And they were like, when you're 12.
Did they let you? Oh, okay. So when you were 10, you're like, "Ah."
And
Okay.
no, when I was 10, I would just like hang out with lots of children and like do like mother's helper situations.
Okay.
And when I was 12 and they had a baby, I was like, let me watch him. So
I can do this.
yeah, but I have 14-year-olds and I would never. Like times, times have changed. And then I've just always naturally gravitated towards children and vice versa. I've been extremely good with them my whole life. Loved learning, and so it's just worked out over time. I'm also a professional nanny.
Oh, okay.
And
I forgot that on your resume. Sorry.
I've been a professional nanny for over 15 years.
Oh, okay.
So in addition, so basically all of my hats are postpartum doula, professional nanny, child passenger safety technician, and certified pediatric sleep consultant.
Wow. Okay. So it's safe to say you're an expert on small humans.
I am. I identify as an expert in the early in 0 to 3, basically.
Okay.
But I'm very, very comfortable with the newborn stage.
Oh, okay.
And the postpartum stage. I'm very comfortable with all of them.
Okay.
But I could rattle off facts about newborn stuff for hours. So,
well, we only have,
I know.
58 minutes, so.
Yes.
We mentioned routines. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm
do your thing.
Gonna go all over the map. I remember when my children were small, it would take forever to figure out patterns, whether it was sleep patterns or eating patterns or cranky patterns or whatever. Soon as we finally figured out a routine, it would change. So would that be an instance where I would call upon your expertise to help me from losing what's left of my sanity?
Possibly. I don't know that lack of routine would necessarily.
Well, it's a routine, but as soon as you figure it out, it changes into a different routine and then morphs into something else.
People generally contact me because their babies aren't sleeping or their mental health is going down the drain, or their babies aren't sleeping and their mental health is going down the drain.
Well, because they're not getting any sleep.
Right.
So, yes. Yeah. Why would somebody call you? How would somebody call you? And then what do you do?
Yeah. So if somebody calls me for sleep or contacts me for sleep, they would either email me, fill out my form on my website, and ask for help and just say, I'm struggling, this is my situation, and then we set up a phone call. Okay. How can I help you? What can we do? What are your goals? What are you hoping for? Mm-hmm. And depending on the age of the child will depend on what we do and how we do it.
Okay.
And if it's doula related, I don't do a lot of doula work these days. There's not enough hours in the day.
Because you need to sleep at some point as well.
Yeah, that's minimal.
Might be minimal, but it's still important.
I mean, I'm human, yes. Right now I'm looking for Saturday overnight, so that is my only doula stuff. And I do Thursdays with an agency, Thursday overnights.
Okay.
But if someone needs help with like newborn care on the weekends, then that's when they would contact me as well. And I do newborn care so that the parents can rest because they need to be there and on for their kids.
Because I remember, that expert advice is sleep when the baby sleeps.
Yeah, right.
But
I mean, in theory, it's great advice.
When do I eat? When do I clean the house?
Yeah.
So, and then there were my kids that, my daughter didn't sleep during the day. She was not a napper. She was great at night, but it was a really long day.
Something related to routines that I do want to bring up that I've been seeing a lot is people generally say that newborns can't have a routine, and that's true and it's not true at the same time. So newborns in theory aren't supposed to be on like a very strict schedule.
Okay.
But they can have a routine. Like you should know how often they need to eat. So there's something called week windows where it's the period of time between the time that they wake up and the time they close their eyes again.
Okay.
And so if you have a 30 to 45 minute wake window, so that would be a 0 to 6 week old,
Okay.
you know that when they're awake, they need to eat, play, and sleep.
Okay.
So you do that, and then
In
you
that
just keep
order.
following that order.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like a pattern. So not really it's not a schedule. It's
No,
a
it's loose, and you
routine.
need to be flexible, and you
Right.
need to remember that they're human, and you're human, and things happen,
And they're
you get
still learning.
and you get pooped on sometimes or puked
Oh
on, and
my
it
gosh,
just
yeah.
happens.
I was actually talking about that because through work I will be teaching a babysitting course to middle school and high school students, and we had to get little diapers for the CPR babies because the CPR babies are going to double as babysitting babies. So we're putting those on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would not be good for a blowout at 3 a.m., which, yes, has happened before.
Oh gosh, it's happened to everyone. Understood.
Is it true, when you were talking about, just developing that pattern, is it, baby, I've heard, could be an old wives' tale, could be an urban myth, whatever you want to call it, but babies born at night have a reverse cycle than the babies that are born in the daytime, and they get day and night confused.
So it has nothing to do with the fact that when they're born.
Okay.
And everything to do with the fact that when they're in utero, they're lulled to sleep by the movement of the person carrying them.
Okay.
And at night, the babies, fetuses, tend to be asleep at night or awake at night because their parent is sleeping.
Because they're awake now because they've been sleeping
it's
all day.
Party time. Yeah. So oftentimes babies are born or can be born with their days and nights flipped.
Okay.
People say every baby is born that way. That's not true.
Okay.
And there are ways to flip them.
Okay.
You just need to be consistent.
Okay.
If you ever work with me, if anyone ever works with me, I will tell you to be consistent until I am blue in the face.
And don't hold your breath.
It will just, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
You need to be consistent, take them out in the day, take them out if the weather is okay, be near windows. A lot of, in the UK, for instance, they tell parents not to turn lights off at nap time because they'll think that it's nighttime.
Oh, okay.
I don't tell my clients that because I want my babies to sleep when it's sleep time.
Yeah.
And
not look around the room going,
sleep time doesn't mean night. Sleep time means sleep.
Sleep.
And also, so newborns are not born with a circadian rhythm.
Okay. I think that's what I was thinking. All right.
Yeah, newborns are not born with a constant, what's the word? A consistent amount of melatonin.
Okay.
It's really inconsistent, so they get spikes occasionally, but it's not regularly. And breast milk at night, if a breast or human milk has melatonin in it at night from the parent.
Oh, okay.
But creating the habit so that when the child does develop their circadian rhythm between 4 and 6 months old, their body will be used to it already. And night sleep is sparked by the circadian rhythm. Day sleep is sparked by habit.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize there was a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's back up a little bit. Perinatal and postpartum. What is perinatal?
Perinatal means before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy. So it's an umbrella term for everything.
Everything. Okay.
And postpartum is just after birth.
Just after. Now, is there is it the first 6 months? Is it or 6 weeks, 6 months, or just, hey, after you give birth, it's
I mean, it's
forever.
It's up for debate. Your body is healing for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
For the first 6 weeks. And I know in America, in the United States specifically, the birthing person is only followed by the OB for the first 6 weeks, and then they're set free.
Right.
And they,
which is scary when it's your first kid. You're like, what am I going to do with this little human?
well, and their bodies just created an organ and birthed the
Yes.
organ and a tiny person.
Yes, exactly.
And then you're expected to heal from said organ and tiny person and care for tiny person.
Yeah.
And yourself.
How long, you just, generally, how long in normal circumstances would that take?
So,
because obviously 6 weeks isn't long enough.
no, I don't know,
Okay.
but most OBs
Yeah.
tell people not to get pregnant for the first 18 months
Okay.
or year. It might be year because and depending on if they had a cesarean section or
okay.
a vaginal birth will also vary because of how the uterus is healing.
Okay.
But you have to think that the placenta is the size of a dinner plate.
Yeah.
So they say a dinner plate sized wound. So that's a large
That's
wound
big.
that you then need to heal from.
Okay.
So most people take 6+ weeks to heal, but I don't know specifically.
So we've talked about the mother, or the birth mother having to heal.
The birth parent.
Birth parents.
'Cause
Okay.
it's not always a mother.
Okay. I did not know that.
Well, there's our trans folks that give birth and they identify as fathers. They
Okay.
are fathers.
That's
Seahorse dads.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the birth parent versus the non-birthing parent. So the person who has not given birth, but is still a parental unit with that new child.
Yeah.
How does the whole postpartum thing impact that person? Because their body doesn't necessarily need to heal, but their life has been turned upside down with, the birthing human possibly being with them. Because I'm thinking like in the event of an adoption or in the event of, how does it impact the person who has not given birth but is still like in that situation?
I can speak for this specifically because I went through it almost a year and a half ago. I did not carry my son, and I am not a father. So but I certainly was a new parent, and I was exhausted. It impacts people because they are still new parents, and they are, so my wife, after she gave birth to our son, was breastfeeding, and I was assisting with the breastfeeding. I was doing all of the care for him. She was also pumping so that I could bottle feed him, and she was breastfeeding, but he did not like the breast, so it was mostly pumping at that point. And
children can be so picky.
I specifically wanted her to heal. She had a C-section.
Okay.
So I let her sleep a lot, and I've been around a million babies. So I was like, let's do this.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it's still a lot. It's overwhelming. You have this person, tiny human who you don't know. They don't know
They
you.
don't come with instructions.
And I tell parents all the time, there are a million baby books, but none are written for your baby.
Right.
And that makes things complicated. And
It does.
a lot of people don't have experience with babies.
Right.
But in society, that's the next thing to do after you get married is make a baby. So
Exactly.
then you have a baby and you don't know what to do with it. So it's overwhelming.
There's this screaming child. What do I do?
Right.
It makes noise and it smells funny.
Yep.
I know I'm oversimplifying things, but yeah.
But you're not wrong. And a lot of, so whether or not people birth a child, they can still be at risk for perinatal mental health issues. So postpartum depression, anxiety, psychosis, OCD,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera. And it's, everyone is at risk after having a child within the first year.
Because basically your life is
Flipped
no
upside
longer
down.
your own.
Mhm.
Have you noticed in your experience the difference between if it's someone's first child or if it's not the first, whether it's the second or third, or, you know, are there differences, not necessarily in birthing order, but
I've never noticed a difference. That's a really good question, though. I wonder if there have been studies on that.
because I'm thinking, you know, yes, every child is totally different, even though genetically they might have very common, you know, similarities, but everyone's different. And
Well, if you have a very easy older child and then a baby with colic, which is, I'm going to explain this quickly.
okay,
Colic is 3 or more hours of crying for 3 or more days a week for 3 or more weeks. So it's
Okay.
a whole lot of crying that is really inconsolable, and everyone is
Yes.
going to lose their mind.
and their hearing.
And so if you have an older child who's easy and then you have a younger child with colic, actually one of my nanny families was like this. And I told the family, if they have another baby, I'm leaving. They weren't planning on it, and I was with them for 4 years. So,
Oh, wow.
like,
Yeah, it's like, no, nope.
but he cried basically for the first 9 months of his life.
Oh,
And he had reflux.
okay.
So he was a miserable little guy.
Okay. I didn't realize that there was a definition of colic because, okay, fine, my kids are, you know, 12 and 14, but when they were not, it seemed to be that, I don't want to say dumping ground, but if you can't answer the question, it's got to be colic.
Well, yes, because it's not. So colic is generally a symptom of something. Something is wrong,
Yes.
whether it's their GI tract or reflux or something more,
Okay.
or they're not getting enough sleep, or they're not getting enough food. So it's a symptom.
Okay.
It's not, and oftentimes they don't figure it out.
Okay.
So it's a very upset baby
Okay.
who is inconsolable, and oftentimes it drives parents, for lack of a better term, to drink.
Yeah.
It's
Well, in the past, a lot of times it was the cranky, colicky, unconsolable, or inconsolable infant, which then led to like shaken baby syndrome.
it still does.
Okay, but there seems to be more awareness now, and more resources that are available. Not saying that people will take advantage of those resources, but it just seems to be,
What was that?
I don't know.
Something squeaked and sounded like a
Yes.
bird.
Okay, could be the chair.
Oh, it is your
Yep,
chair.
it's my chair.
Sorry.
Squeak chair. Sorry.
I get distracted easily.
Yes. Shaky baby syndrome.
Yes. So I tell my clients that if they have a baby with colic or that is fussy in
Okay.
general, it's okay to put them down. Put them in a
Yes.
safe place, like a crib or a pack and play, on the floor.
Yeah.
Walk away. Go take a shower. Put some headphones in. Go outside. Scream into a pillow. Give yourself a minute or 10.
Or
Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're not going to hurt your child by giving yourself time.
To regroup.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
regroup
to
and
just
calm
take a
down and
break.
eat a meal. Like, take care of yourself. Your child will be
Take a shower.
fine. Yes. I tell that to people all the time. And because ultimately, if you are losing your mind, you're not present and you're not in a place to necessarily take care of a baby who needs you.
Right. Okay. So in a situation like that, I'm just, finally looking at my notes. How are you able to encourage parents to seek your help, your professional help, when usually they just feel completely overwhelmed and they're like, I don't have time for something else.
One of my former clients who has become a great friend, she credits me for saving her mental health because she had seen me posting on a mutual group that we're in over and over again. And she finally messaged me when her son was 5 weeks and said, I need help. And
oh, okay.
She just was like, I keep seeing all these messages, all these posts. Like, I need you to come help me.
Okay.
So basically, you just need to suck up your pride and ask for help.
Okay.
It's okay. And I'm not going to judge you. No, anyone who's good at their job is not going to judge you.
Right.
Like,
we're ask for help now before you know.
Well, my friend was really struggling, and she says now that she's out of it that she didn't realize how badly she was struggling at the time.
Well, I almost feel that that's like the nature of the beast. Because if you're a first-time parent, babies don't come with instructions. You have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
And you don't know what's normal, if there is a normal.
Right.
So, I remember when my daughter was born, I was struggling, but people were telling me, oh, it's normal. It's just because, you're a new mom and you're an older mom. I was advanced maternal age. And they're like, well, you just all of a sudden gave up your career and, that transition is what's bothering you. You'll get over it.
Let's just be clear that it's okay to struggle. It doesn't mean it's normal, but it's okay.
There's a certain, threshold.
There's a learning curve, but struggling is struggling. Mm-hmm. And if you need help, that's okay. And for people to dismiss your struggle is not okay.
Right. Well, I know that now.
I know.
But so we talked a little bit about, I don't know whether birth order is the right, terminology, your first kid struggling versus your second versus your third, whatever. Have you ever worked with multiples? Mm-hmm. How does that impact, the family unit?
Well, two things. Since this show is based on routine, let's do two things here.
All right. I made a tangent, so yes, thank you for refocusing me on routines. Okay.
So two things. The only time that newborn should have a schedule is when there's twins or high order multiples.
Okay. Wait, what's a high order multiple?
More than twins.
More than twins. Okay.
Triplets, quads, quins.
I just hadn't heard that term before, so
I have twins, so
okay.
I am a step parent to twins, so it's in my world.
Well, I wasn't sure if it was like twins as the only children in the house versus twins with a toddler, or
no.
Okay, so the number of infants that we're dealing with.
Yes.
Okay.
If you have twins or more, then put them on the same schedule, and you likely will want them to eat and sleep at the same time. And
okay.
So, and it's similar to a lot of multiples are in the NICU at birth.
Okay.
Because it's high risk and
right.
They're often early.
Right.
So because of that, the NICU will put them on a fantastic schedule.
Oh, cool. You just have to keep that schedule.
You do. I actually worked with a set of triplets for 3 months when they were newborns.
Wow.
It was fantastic. I loved every second of it. But for overnights, and the parents kept their NICU schedule, and it was fantastic. Every 3 hours, they would wake up, and I would feed them. But what was the original question, though? Because I forget now.
Just how is that different than just having one with, the routine, with the schedule, with the treatment? parental
So
mental health.
it's a lot. It's a lot of babies.
And I'm also sitting here thinking, how do you feed triplets at the same time?
It was not the way you're supposed to, and I don't know that I should actually say this.
Okay, well,
but there was propping sometimes.
Okay.
Or one baby would be in a pillow, and one baby would be on me, and I would do like this.
Okay, because I'm just thinking,
You're not supposed to prop bottles, but sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. But then I would pick each of them up and burp them and hold them and make sure they were good. But
because I'm just, thinking the parent-child ratio should never be less than 1.
Unless you have more than one baby at a time.
And that's why you hire you.
Yeah. So having multiples is a whole different ballgame than having a singleton in general. Excuse me. And caring for multiple babies at once is hard. You just do it.
Just trying to get them on that same routine.
Well, you make them on the same routine. You feed them at the same time. You wake them at the same time. You play with them at the same, like everything is the exact same time.
Okay.
So that it makes sense for everyone.
I am so glad I did not have multiples because I cannot imagine trying to do that.
My wife was a single mom for 10 years to twins.
Wow.
Okay. She's a superhero.
Yeah, basically.
But when we had our singleton, she was like, how did I do that?
Yeah. Well, I kind of think it is a different experience.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Like I know a mom that her first birth experience, she had twins. And then she's like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with only one because she had a third child that was just one. And it's like, it's an adjustment.
It is. And my wife, Heather, has said that it was different, but she enjoyed it more because she wasn't single. She wasn't doing it on her own.
You have help. That is.
But she said the whole experience was completely different.
Okay. I have quotes on my next question, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was something that I saw on your website. What does appropriate sleep look like with infants and small children? What is appropriate sleep? Is that the 12-hour-a-day thing, or,
It's what sleep is supposed to look like.
Okay. I'm kind of curious what sleep is
depending
supposed
on
to
the
look
age
like.
of the child. So, for example, a newborn is supposed to get between 14 and 17 hours of sleep within a 24-hour period.
Okay.
And then it goes down depending on the age. But like having naps, being able to fall asleep independently, falling asleep independently at bedtime, not waking up 40,000 times.
Okay.
Not necessarily eating 5,000 times to eat, like at night. So I am very pro human milk feeding throughout the night if it works for all parties.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, unless it's a brand new newborn, I wouldn't recommend more than twice a night.
Okay.
And because it's unlikely that your baby needs to eat more than twice a night if they're going to bed at a normal time and waking up at a normal time and eating enough during the day. A 4 to 6 month old is the only time I would say possibly 3 times.
Okay.
Because between 4 and 6 months old, the human body is still on the cusp of being able to sleep through the night.
Okay.
But by 6 months old, healthy humans do not need to eat at night.
Okay.
So until the baby is 6 months old, feeding regularly throughout the night is typical. But after that, not necessarily.
Okay, speaking of sleeping and feeding and routine or schedule or whatever you want to call it, I was given some advice, 14 years ago, almost 15. Every 2 hours you need to wake the baby up and feed them. If my kid was sleeping, why should I wake up my kid just to feed them? Because if they're sleeping, they're not hungry.
The only time you need to do that is if they are under their birth weight.
Okay. And mine was not.
So, but that was
Because it was
14
like-
years ago.
That was 14 years ago, and it would, I felt like a horrible parent.
Well, especially because people tell you not to wake a sleeping baby.
Well, yeah. And it's like I'd be trying to feed her and she'd fall asleep.
Yep,
and
'cause
it's
she
like,
wasn't-
okay, put a cold face cloth on her. I'm like, really? And of course, first time parent, I don't know. I want this, small human to
Grow and thrive. And
exactly. I want to be that good parent, to set my child up for success. But it's like, okay, I'm following the expert advice. So yeah, okay. So now just let the baby sleep and
So right now I'm
Okay.
doing one night a week with, she's now 2 weeks old. Last week when I started, she was 1 week old. And she went 5 hours between a feed. And because she doesn't need to be woken up to eat anymore. But until 3 months, I'm not comfortable with them going more than 4 hours. And I'm allowed to sleep on my shift. So I had fallen asleep and not set an alarm
okay.
because I assumed she would wake up sooner. And she did not. So I told her parents that this week, which will be tomorrow,
Okay.
I will not let her go more than 4 hours on my shift
Okay.
without eating. So and that doesn't mean she's sleeping that whole time,
Okay.
but it's just because so between 0 and 3 months, I would not go more than 4 hours.
Okay.
And maybe between 0 and 10 weeks.
Okay.
Because as they get bigger, they'll be gaining weight. But when they're still a brand new, fresh newborn, they need to eat frequently.
Okay.
When they're born, their stomachs are only the size of a cherry. Tiny.
That's little.
Little. Well, look at them.
Well, I know. Their head's the size of the rest of them, so
Yep.
they'll grow into their head,
They will.
I know, it's just
But
little
they're
proportion.
Oh yeah, the proportions are
thing.
off. But their
So-
little tummies are tiny, and then they get bigger every day.
Okay. Can you tell me more about self-soothing? I can't say that. Because it's like, okay, the expert advice that somebody who was not a professional, but they were a parent of 3 children said, kid needs sleep, the kid's tired, leave them in the crib, they'll figure out how to sleep.
Some of
After
them
an
will.
hour and a half of screaming, I realized that no, this is not going to happen. So, which is probably why. Anyway, probably why we're having challenges now. But anyway, tell me more about self-soothing and when it works, when it doesn't work. How do you know if it's working? All that kind of fun stuff.
So from the earliest that I would recommend sleep training, and I know this is not your question, is 13 weeks, between 11 and 13 weeks, depending on which methods you're using.
So
The
that's roughly 3 months-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Creating healthy sleep habits from the very beginning will, in theory, teach your baby how to fall asleep independently without needing to sleep train.
Okay.
Probably 80% of parents I come in contact with don't do that.
Okay.
So then they have a 3 month plus old child who doesn't know how to fall asleep independently. And then they turn a year, they turn 2, 3, whatever, and they don't know how to fall asleep independently.
Okay.
They don't know how to self-soothe.
Okay.
So self-soothing means they are able to calm themselves down so that, and just in general, to regroup and settle themselves
Okay.
so that they
Does
can...
it count like with a pacifier or no?
I use pacifiers
Okay.
for clients if they want them, depending
I
on...
realize it's a personal choice.
It
but,
is a personal choice. Some sleep consultants are absolutely like anti-pacifier.
Okay.
If it's working for the family and the kid can put it in their mouth themselves, then keep it. if it is not working for the family and the parents are getting up 15,000 times to put it in their mouth, then lose it.
Yeah.
Because nobody is benefiting from that. So it's really based on the family. But if the child is able to calm themselves with a pacifier, then great, keep it up.
Or music, or
my son sucks his two fingers and then pushes.
Okay.
But you can tell that whenever he starts to get upset, he stops and sticks his little fingers in his mouth. And he calms down immediately because he knows how to self-soothe.
Okay.
Self-soothing isn't always just sleeping. It's when you're starting to get upset, can you calm yourself down?
Okay.
And it's the ability to calm yourself down. So think about a group of 4-year-olds. Okay. Rambunctious, crazy people. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be. It's great.
They're 4.
Yeah. 4 comes with a lot of big feelings. Okay. And 3, between 2 and 4, they have a lot of big feelings and they don't know how to deal with them, and they don't know how to identify them generally, and they don't know what they are, and can they calm themselves down if they're freaking out? That would be, are they able to self-soothe?
But would the self-soothing techniques change?
Yes.
And will the individual, the child, be able to...
Oh, will they adapt, you mean, with the person?
Recognize those changes and figure it out, going, okay, It's
going to become second nature. I don't think my son, who is 16 months, is going to go to college sucking his fingers.
Okay.
So, I hope, because he's going to need major braces if that's the case. And probably some sort of therapy. But the child will adapt over time to what works.
We'll find new techniques on
their
own.
But when it comes to self-soothing at night, teaching the child to fall asleep independently and calm themselves down is imperative. Okay. So that's where sleep training comes in.
Okay. Tell me a little more about sleep training.
Sleep training is teaching your child how to fall asleep independently and self-soothe. Okay.
How do you do that?
There are various different methods depending on, so the more harsh methods are the extinction method, which is cry it out. And the
which is really painful for everybody involved.
Yeah. Okay. Cry it out is not a method that I use or recommend to my clients. So it works for some people. Great.
Yeah.
It's not a method that I recommend to my clients.
Okay. What are some of the techniques that would be a little more beneficial than crying
it out? So I use check and console, or Ferber, or modified Ferber. Basically, it's timed check-ins with crying.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard about that.
So it's intervals of crying. Okay. So, for example, your baby cries or your baby is crying. You put them to bed, and they cry for 15 minutes. You set a timer. If they stop for 10 seconds, you reset the timer and leave them there.
Okay.
And then you go in, if they're crying for a certain amount of time, for when the timer goes off, and you rub their back, you console them. You rub their back, you give them a hug, you tell them you love them, and then you leave. Okay. You're not picking them up.
So like a 15, 20, 30
15 to 30 seconds, exactly. And the point of that is to reassure them that you're there.
Okay.
And they can depend on them, and their parent is still there. They're not abandoning them. You can do this.
Okay.
And that works depending on the personality of the child.
Okay.
And
now, do those intervals change?
I specifically keep the same length.
Okay.
For the Ferber method, which is a true method, the intervals get longer.
Okay.
They start really short.
Is Ferber an acronym or like somebody's
Ferber
name?
is. What's his name?
Sorry, Ferber. Okay.
He has a first name. I think it's either Frederick or Henry, or something. I don't remember his name.
Okay.
But he is a doctor?
Pediatrician.
He's something.
Okay.
I don't remember who he is.
An expert.
Yep. And he created this method of sleep training.
Okay.
Some other methods that I use are shush pat, which you stand over the baby and you shush and pat them.
Okay. Hence the name.
Yeah, and you are not trying to get them to fall asleep. You are trying to get them to calm down, but you don't want them to fall asleep while you're shushing and patting. So you reduce the amount of effort that you're putting into it as you notice that they're calming down and they're like getting sleepy, so that you essentially help them fall asleep and they fall asleep on their own.
Okay.
And then pick up, put down. So for a lot of my clients, I use, it's literally pick up, put down.
Okay.
You like
'Cause
settle
it's not
them.
pick up and walk around the neighborhood.
No,
and
no,
put them
no.
in the car.
You
and drive
pick
around.
them up, hold them for a minute, like calm them down, and then put them back down.
Okay.
And
So kind of like the first method, but you actually pick them up. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I use shush pat and pick up put down with clients that want gentler methods, because I had one client who was 5 months old and she was sleeping with her mom her whole life and breastfeeding to sleep all night. And we did, like, she would just wake up and fall back asleep all night. And we moved her to the crib.
Okay.
We did shush pat and pick up put down, and it was hard, but she did it. And in 2 weeks she was sleeping and still breastfeeding twice a night.
Okay.
But that's great. And she was falling asleep independently.
How long do these patterns, is there like a normal length of time where, okay, after 2 weeks, if it still doesn't work, let's try something else? Or
So when I work with clients, I generally work with them for 2 weeks.
okay.
And within the first week, if things aren't working, by 3 days, I'm changing things.
Okay.
Because you're going to know if something is getting worse within 3
Okay.
days. But if it's not getting worse, then don't break. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Okay, but it's not getting better. It's just not getting
No,
worse.
it will.
Okay.
It will get better.
Okay, but like
I'm
after the
just-
3 days, if it's
So
not worse,
for
let's give
the-
it some more time.
Yep. And I'm constantly making changes with people. And if they're not comfortable with something, then we're adapting
Okay.
to make things work for the family.
Okay.
And that's a benefit of working with a sleep consultant, because I can change things for you and know what's going to, in theory, work,
Okay.
so that we can get your kiddo sleeping.
Have you noticed differences in like family dynamics, whether it's like a nuclear family versus extended family, cultural differences, language differences? How can you adapt?
I really like this question.
As the professional, how can you adapt for those family
Situations?
dynamics?
I had the same client with the 5-month-old. Mom was from Bosnia and Germany.
Okay.
And I had another client who was from Mexico, and dad was from Europe, I believe.
Okay.
And I've talked to all these families and said, like, in your culture, how are children put to sleep? Because your history and your culture is going to play a huge role in how you handle this situation.
Okay.
So it will depend on the family to educate me on their culture so that I am aware of it.
Okay.
But then once I know what they're used to or what they're comfortable with, then we can make things work however they want to. And when there's grandparents around, if the grandparents are the primary caregivers, then that's different. Like, basically, I only want the primary caregivers involved in the sleep training that are working directly with me. If the grandparents are involved and they're doing day stuff, then the parents can relay everything to them.
Okay. Because I'm also thinking, as you were saying, well, how does your culture do this? I'm thinking, I don't know if I would have been able to answer, because, like we were talking earlier, I had all these questions, like what is normal, letting it cry out, letting the child cry out. So for a new parent, I don't know,
Well, yeah, and when they don't know, they follow my lead.
wing it. Okay.
Yeah, but if you know that, like, say I have not had an Indigenous family come to me, but for example, if I did, then I would depend on them for educating me.
Okay.
Or I would say, tell me which indigenous tribe you are a member of so I can look up your techniques and your, what's the word that starts, your traditions and
Okay.
what I need to know so I can assist you in doing this.
Okay. Got it.
I also am obsessed with sociology.
Oh,
so
okay.
if somebody came to me and was like, I'm from this specific culture, I'm going to want to know everything.
Yeah.
I majored in anthropology and sociology in college.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I love cultures.
Okay. Neat. Again, I'm relying on the expert advice that I was given to, many years ago. Developmental milestones. I think we were also talking earlier about when is a child expected to roll over? When is a child expected to crawl? When are they expected to walk? All of these milestones. By a year, they should be doing this and this. How do you know when to seek additional help versus, my kid will walk eventually? Or, oh my gosh,
So
when do you call in, the cavalry?
it's tricky for me to answer that because I am so educated on milestones, and I know milestones really well, and all the updates and stuff.
Okay.
However, if you're concerned, bring it up with your pediatrician.
Well, yeah.
And you as in the people out there, can they can refer themselves to early intervention.
Okay.
So children under 3, if you suspect that there's some sort of delay,
okay,
physical, developmental, something, if there's some sort of delay, get an early intervention evaluation. It's free. They come to your home, and it's a fantastic resource.
Okay.
My son is 16 months, and just recently, right before he turned 15 months, the pediatrician said if he's 15 months and he's not pulling up, we need PT. 3 days before he was 15 months old, he started pulling up.
Oh, boy.
And then
I'm going to stand up now.
And then we went to the pediatrician, and she was like, I said, I don't think we need a referral now because he's doing it.
Yeah.
And I said, but we're still going to watch him, because if he doesn't continue to develop and get closer to walking, then there's still something wrong.
Okay.
But I know.
Is he cruising?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And he's playing with his balance.
Okay.
He's not standing independently yet, but he will let go of something and try and hang in the middle for a second, or he'll push himself off the ottoman and lean against the couch.
Okay. Yep.
So he's trying.
Okay.
But
yeah, my son would walk down the hallway.
My son does that too. Today,
Okay, I'm going down the hallway now.
we were at the nanny job, and we were outside, and he stood up at the sliding door, and it opened because he pushed just right. And he was fine, but I was like,
Okay.
Did you just open the door?
I'm thinking he was probably like, the wall moved.
Well, then he was
What
like,
do I do? The wall moved.
Door. And I was just like, what just happened?
So he's talking already?
Oh, he's been talking for a very long time.
Okay.
But that's worth noting. If a child is advanced in one area, they're likely going to be delayed in another.
Because
my son is probably 50 plus words.
That's incredible.
It's insane.
Because usually aren't they around 18 to 20 months before
By
they
18
even
months, they want them to have 10 words.
And he's 15 months and can carry on, a conversation. Wow. Okay.
I can ask him to, he gets a few minutes to have his milk before he brushes his teeth every night while he's playing. And every night it's, Sawyer, go find your milk. You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Or whatever. You have 5 minutes. Go find your milk. And he always looks around to find his milk.
Okay.
Goes to get it, drinks it, and then we'll continue to play.
Okay.
His receptive language is uncanny.
Well, that usually comes first, though, right?
Yeah, but his expressive is really incredible as well.
Okay.
And he repeats everything we say, so we can't swear in front of him anymore.
Oh. Yeah, then you're in trouble when he learns how to spell.
I know. Which will probably be when he's 2.
Yeah,
the rate we're
probably.
going.
So,
I know you were interested in the ASL stuff.
I know, but we only have about 2 minutes left, so I'm not sure whether we should launch into the ASL if there's anything else you want to add.
I don't know.
Okay. So ASL, real quick, 10-cent tour.
I am fluent. I used to be fluent in American Sign Language.
Okay.
I have a degree in deaf studies. I dated a woman who is deaf and very involved in the deaf community. I used to be involved in the deaf community. I would love clients that are deaf so that I can give them access to all these things.
Because I'm also thinking, you know, just as you're telling me about, you know, the deaf community, how would a deaf parent hear their child crying?
There's alerts. There's alarms.
Okay. But
they light up or vibrate.
Yeah, teaching children sign language.
Mm-hmm. How? What?
Why would you want to do something like that?
To minimize frustration and make communication easier for everyone.
So I know the answer because I went through this.
Yeah.
But a lot, you know, I did teach my kids sign language when they were really, really little. And, you know, the critics in my circle was, oh, well, if you teach them how to sign, they're not going to want to talk.
And that's baloney.
So
teaching a child communication is communication, and they are going to learn how to speak.
Okay.
But
they don't have the fine motor skills, so
no, you have to get
adapt.
Creative.
Okay. I think a friend of mine said her son learned the sign for snowblower.
Oh,
that's
great.
Like, yeah, okay. You know, because, you know, the dad was out snow blowing the driveway and turned the little handle to move the little nozzle, so snowblower.
I can totally see that.
So, yeah. But, you know, I think in my experience, it's like, okay, my daughter waited until like around 18 months to start talking, but by 20 months, she was speaking, you know, 5-6 word sentences. Wow. And it was like amazing. She went from hi to, you know, hey, kitty cat, what are you doing today? You know, or, you know, Seamus out. Yeah, that's what it was. Our cat's name was Seamus, and he would sit like right in front of her, and she'd say, Seamus, buddy boo, out of way, please.
Oh.
Because he was in her way. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we're just going to have a sequel again. This time I'll give you more than, you know, a month. But sign language is very important. Communication is very important. And I appreciate your teaching us about routine, because I do think routines are important.
They are
and
important.
To keep that continuity and to keep everybody on the same page, I guess. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everyone for tuning in at home. I hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as I have. And I also hope you are enjoying the nice weather that we're finally getting. Have a great night, and I will see you around town. Good night.
My bubbles. I am so thirsty.
Like,